And he says we're in a pretty fortunate situation and why he was shocked by Amex. And he said he had 400,000 American Express points ready to spend on their honeymoon, mind you. And American Express hits them with this freeze, and now he lost all 400,000 points if they can't reinstate them. If you have any American Express credit cards right now, you need to be careful because right now, American Express is having a compliance nightmare where a ton of people are actually getting their accounts completely shut down, all of their cards completely closed, and all of the points completely erased from their entire account. So we're going to go through exactly why this is happening, why is American Express all of a sudden closing accounts, and exactly what you can do about it in the future to avoid this in the first place. Starting off first, we have to go through, again, all of the tons and tons of people who are going through what's considered a financial review right now. And so while you might be thinking like, oh, people are just gaming, right? They're just trying to abuse the system to get a bunch of points for free. No, these are actually 26 long year veterans who have had this card their entire life, have always paid it on time, never had anything questionable whatsoever, have high net worths, and are still getting their cards completely closed down. So I want to actually showcase exactly how to avoid this and what happens if you are subject to what's considered a financial review. And so if you're unfamiliar, a financial review typically happens for a couple of different reasons. Either one, you've been convicted of lying on any of your applications for applying for a said credit card, like you want to get that Amex Platinum card, but you don't really make that much money. Maybe you lie and bump it up and say, oh, I make 60K a year when you really only make 30K a year. Okay, that can get you approved for the card, but there also comes a time in the future where American Express can catch wind of this and then actually force you to have a financial review, force you to send in your pay stubs and also all of your tax returns. So this way they can verify that the income that you stated you have, you actually do in fact have at this given time. And things can happen over time, right? People can lose jobs, income can go lower, you get demoted, you could also get promoted. And so many things change. And so over time, if they find that your spending habits change in some particular way, like all of a sudden you start spending a couple $1,000s where you're only spending a couple $100s, anything like that can necessarily trigger a financial review. And this way you'll have to do a couple of things. Like you can see right here, this guy was actually requested that he submitted IRS 4506C form, which you can actually see right here, which is basically like a tax return in a way, and just verifying all of your income and sending it into them to verify that everything you've said on your applications is in fact true. And so American Express has something known as the RAT Squad, which is the rewards abuse team. And so they work hand in hand with this department and knowing if people are going to either try to game and abuse the system with American Express, and if there's any questionable behavior that would make you look like you are abusing the system or you lied on your application. And so both of these things can lead to a financial review. And these financial reviews are not for the faint of heart. A lot of the time they will really gruel you and ask for, like I said, tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, your bank account, all of these things to verify that you're not doing anything particularly wrong. And so what happens is if you fail that financial review and you cannot come up with the documents that they're looking for, well, all of your cards and all of your points are completely gone, canceled, removed, and never to be seen again. And so we have a story from a guy right here for an Amex financial review, got shut down, womp womp, and you can actually go through his timeline and exactly what he is, what he did, and how this actually occurred in his life. And again, in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk through exactly how to avoid this yourself and also what to do if you are in the process of being financially reviewed. And so this guy mentions his first financial review was requesting pay stubs and bank accounts, and that was in September, so just a few months ago. And then he got a second financial review recently in November requesting tax transcripts, so just to see that he's making the income that he stated he was. And so he mentioned that he made an income of 150 to 170K depending on the bonus and all these different things. His initial income on the first card application was just 100K, so less than what he actually makes currently. He said there was no bounce payments, there was no credit cycling, which is just spending more than your limit every single month. Like if you have a 5K limit, you spend 5K, pay it off, spend another 5K in one given month. That's technically cycling, and that's a no-no for any credit card issuer. And it looks like he's had close to maybe 80K in total limits between all of his American Express cards, the Gold, the Plat, and the Aspire. He spends less than $35,000 in a given year on his American Express card. And even with all of this history, you know, high credit score, paying on time, no credit cycling, not doing anything weird, they took away the Gold, the Plat, and the Aspire, canceling all three of these credit cards and likely removing all the points that he may have built up over the years on these said credit cards. And so he mentioned some activities that Amex might not have liked. I financed a new car, 35K, Toyota Financial, end of October, which is not necessarily the biggest deal. It's very small in comparison to his income, even factoring in his stated income from 2022. He says he has an Asian name, but I do not participate in buying groups, and there was a large buying group for people that was shut down earlier this year. Yes, it is true. There were, on average, in a lot of these buying groups, more and more people who had Asian names being shut down with American Express because they were in these buying groups. So essentially a group of people who buy a bunch of, call it, electronics, and then they have people to sell that to. So this way they get the money back for the electronics they paid for, but they gain all the points that they earn on their specific credit card, even if it's 1x. If you spend 50K a year, that's 50,000 points a year, and you never actually had to spend $1 to get that. So this is abuse, and this would be an issue. And so he just mentions because he has an Asian name, which I have heard a couple of times, people being worried if they had that name and they were targeted for this. I'm not necessarily sure. He also mentioned I started to accelerate my churning activities, but just not on American Express. Now that could really raise an issue because American Express on the back end does look and see how many cards you're opening and how much you're using their cards and other cards. You can see this when you go to apply for a certain credit card and you're denied. You ask Recon, hey, why was I denied? Well, you have 15 other credit cards that you're not using. I maxed out referrals every single year, so I guess he's got a bunch of friends, and he gets a corporate card annual feedback every single year, but that is all completely legit, and he's only applied for just a few cards, honestly, in the last year, so it doesn't seem anything that crazy, to be honest. And so he mentions his income, and the last thing that he says is even though they canceled his Platinum card, he still has $45 of Uber cash from that credit every single month. It's still in there, and I guess I'm eating takeout tonight. And so with this experience, there's a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of people saying, like, I feel like they don't share all of the information on these shutdown posts, right? This guy might actually be churning and doing buying groups, doing the crazy stuff. I don't necessarily think he's lying. I think he's probably telling the truth, but a lot of people are always skeptical about, oh, are they really saying everything that they're doing? Are they doing more underhanded stuff that they're just not mentioning out in the world because they want to seem right? And so while some of that happens, what about this guy right here? How he was a 26-year-long Platinum card member, getting it in 1997. This guy had American Express as his first client in marketing and advertisement. I guess the work that he did back in 1997, met and presented to the C-suite, I guess the higher ups at that time. And he loved this brand for many, many years. And so he's had his Platinum card for over 26 years, and it was canceled last month because of a financial review process. This is a guy who's earning low to mid high six figures for 26 years while holding this card. Paid it off every single month without fail, never missed a payment. Put everything on the cards, over 100K annually. This is a profitable person to American Express. He never carried any debt except for mortgage and occasional cars, which everybody has. Investments around $4 million and a high credit score. And so you might be wondering, how the heck did this happen to this guy? I mean, he is a perfect candidate for somebody that American Express loves. And so he goes on to say, at the beginning of the year, I left my latest job and decided to take a year to consult and assess and not just run into another big position, trying to slow down in life. And so he registered his LLC, got a business goal to go with it, and he was able to hit that sub. Okay, cool. Now, August, he's on vacation in British Columbia, and he gets hit with a financial review. And so basically what happens when you're immediately hit like this is, he mentions, literally all 4 cards nuked at once, meaning he will go buy groceries out in the store for his family, and all 4 cards are saying decline, decline, decline. And so what happens then is that all of your cards are completely frozen, and not just the credit cards are frozen. Also, mind you, the points on your account are frozen. And this is a guy who spends $100,000 a year on his Amex cards, and he's earning hundreds of thousands of points every single year, I'm sure, on his American Express credit cards. And so if you had, say, 1 million points in your Amex account, you were just waiting for that awesome redemption to hit, well, you got hit with a financial review. Well, those points are all completely frozen until we figure out if you are legit. And so that's exactly what happens to financial reviews. All of your points are completely frozen. You can't transfer them out to partners. You can't cash them out. You can't do anything during this process until they figure out who you exactly are. And so then he goes on to say a couple of other things, like they requested pay stubs and bank statements, and he sent it all in. And he says, from where I sit, I've never been aware of any of this. It feels scammy and weird and very un-Amex. Said there was no warning. It was an ambush. Show me your financial info or else. And that or else is, we'll cancel all your cards and we don't care. So he called American Express. He confirmed it wasn't a scam, which I actually advocate everyone to do, because I'd imagine with more of this going on, people are going to have scam emails send them out there and all those things. So just make sure that you're not being scammed. So call them to make sure these things are legit. He says even their janky email form you have to send docs through looks very sus. And so he says that he's transitioning from his last job, but I'm taking commiserate draws for my investments. So same budget. He said he sent his bank statements. They want a full view of his entire portfolio. And so I asked them whether 26 years as a customer with no down payments is a high credit rating means anything to them. And they say no. Absolutely not. Who cares? Again, very un-Amex. Then in November, the same thing they want is now the IRS forms, which is that 4506C form. Can't tell them why they did it again. They just demand I give them the IRS authorization. I asked them multiple times why they didn't just reach out to verify my income without the ambush. No one could tell me anything other than it's our responsibility as a financial institution. Now, this is true because right now there are decent credit card delinquency rates in the US, and you could see by state exactly how delinquent people necessarily are. So me in South Carolina, we're not doing too hot. 25% delinquency rates on a lot of our credit cards. So that means our payment is considered delinquent once it's over 30 days or more past due. And so while it looks like the northern states actually do pretty well, the southern states are kind of lacking. And so with everything going on with the economy at the moment and banks tightening and interest rates going up, they want to actually limit the amount of risk that they actually have. And so this is just a greater part of that, with trying to mitigate any risks that they may have with anybody who either lost their job during these times or have lost their income in some particular way and are going to start, using their credit cards as a means of payment option. And so if you can't get cash, you can't sell investments. If you don't have income, what are you going to go turn to? Well, here's a credit card with a $10,000 credit limit because my family needs to have food. And so what happens is they pay for those groceries on the cards. And then eventually, if things go badly, they're not necessarily able to pay it off. They pay late fees, all these different things. And maybe they just completely go bankrupt at one point in the future. It's a terrible thing, but it does happen. But American Express sees these things on the horizon because they have this data. And so I think they just want to get ahead of it as fast as possible to make sure that as a company, they're not going to lose out and they're not going to risk a lot of money between a lot of people who may not be eligible for their cards any longer, unfortunately. And, throughout all of this, he says, oh, and while my accounts were frozen, they still charged me my annual platinum fee. I mean, really, could it get any worse than that? Absolutely ridiculous. And so for a guy that pretty much did absolutely nothing wrong, if you take his words at face value, I mean, what did he necessarily do to warrant this financial review? And so there are a couple of things you need to know. And there's so many other stories that I could share right here of people who are going through this. And so if you are somebody who is doing a few of the following. Now, here are some key triggers to note that if you are engaging in any of this behavior, you're more and more likely to get triggered for a financial review. Now, number one, multiple or large PayPal friends and family payments. And so if you're using your credit card, your Amex credit cards through PayPal and sending money to friends, this is known as, typically like some sort of, like I mentioned earlier, like a buying group issue or just doing some manufactured spending. This can report issues with American Express and trigger that financial review. Also, excessive point accumulation used as system abuse. Now, this is interesting because what exactly is excessive point accumulation? And so this can come in a few different ways. Either one, maybe you're somebody who is running the upgrade downgrade train, and maybe you're just upgrading and downgrading your card, freely throughout the year and earning a ton of Amex points for doing so. Well, this could possibly be a system abuse issue, and you may be triggered for a financial review. Another point of this is just exactly how are you spending your money? Now, we know American Express over the years has expressed they have not necessarily loved the gift card buying. And so that's kind of part of this. And so if you're spending money on a gift card, like 4x back, but you're going to Publix and you're getting 4x back on your Amex Gold card for call it an Amazon, gift card, whatever's actually there. That is something historically that we've seen has been somewhat of an issue, gift card buying with American Express and also other ecosystems as well. And especially one of the largest ones, which is income versus spending mismatches. And so every now and again, a lot of these card issuers, Amex as well, will ask you, oh, let's update and verify your income. They'll ask you periodically just to update that to make sure that whatever you said on your application, you made 100K, are you still making 100K? Are you making more than that? Or now, did you lose your job? You're making making 20K now. What's the actual system here? Because they only gave you that card and that credit limit based on the income that you provided. And so if there's anything questionable on there, or if they do some sort of a check on your account and you're not making what you stated, you will be triggered for a financial review, to which you'll have to give them the pay stubs, the bank statements, and all. That's also huge. Also, quick credit utilization cycles or sudden credit limit jumps. Now, I'm seeing this across the board. I looked at a lot of these other ones, and so there was something that kind of was, I would say, consistent across a lot of these different situations. And so one thing that I did notice between all of these is that a lot of these people did just make a few big purchases in that given year or in the last few months leading up to this financial review. And so here is a guy who's in a situation where he is a 16-year Amex account member. He only has a platinum, gold, and a blue preferred, and all these cards are 1 to 5+ years old. He's a W-2 employee, good salary, 150K, credit score 800. I mean, he's doing really well, and he has a moderate amount of spend between all these cards. But the only thing that seemed to be a little bit different for him is that he made 3 big purchases this year. So he got married. Congrats to you. What's your name? Jerba? Congrats, Jerba. Congrats on getting married. I put my wedding ring on the Amex Gold card early in the year and paid it off immediately. So this is, typically good, but in their eyes, maybe they have some back-end archaic systems that would suggest like, oh, why is he all of a sudden spending $10,000 or $15,000 on a ring? This looks odd. Let's trigger a financial review. Again, it's not necessarily manual. These were all like AI systems, and they were really not that on top of the game, I think, technologically, because all of these banks, at least all of these banks, I would say, their back-end systems are not really the most advanced. They really don't actually have things together as much as you would think. And so a lot of these things can just trigger these algorithms to suggest you have an issue, and then now you're stuck with it. And there's no person on the back end to be like, oh yeah, let's override the system. No, it's just like whatever the system says is true, but that's a whole other argument for this day and age. Number 2 is they bought a house. It's under both of our names, but the loan is under mine. There's around 400K left on the mortgage, and the monthly payment is 3,100. So that's another large thing that is now have to be factored into this their accounts. And so if you had a bunch of Amex credit cards like you've had for the last few years, but now you own a house, you get married, there's a lot of little changes in there. And so they want to make sure that the money that you're making, your income, can support at least the monthly payment, and the joint venture of you and your wife. And so that's part of it. But for that kind of house with that kind of salary, there really should be raising no red flags. He also bought a new car, used company financing at 0.9 APR. It's too bad they can't take that into consideration, because that's absolutely amazing. He didn't put anything down because of the good rate, and now he has a 37K loan on his account. And it's also like he has a situation where he has $500,000 in retirement accounts. He could literally pay off his car and his house combined and still have money left over, and it will be no issue. But again, these back-end systems don't know that. They don't actually do the legwork to find out what these people's financial situations actually are. Just say how much debt, how much income, and that's it. And so this is how they have to do things when they have millions and tens of millions of customers all around the world. There's going to be breakage, there's going to be issues. And so I think just being safe with how you're spending is actually huge. Now, I actually think he's fine. I think he's doing everything correctly. And as he mentions here, I feel like 150K is sufficient to cover these expenses. I think so all day long. And he says we're in a pretty fortunate situation, and why he was shocked by Amex. And he said he had 400,000 American Express points ready to spend on their honeymoon, mind you. And American Express hits them with this freeze, and now he lost all 400,000 points if they can't reinstate them. And this is where comments come in, like if I was you, I'd say good riddance. It sucks to lose the points you had, but such is life, I guess. And so that's typically what ends up happening. And so there are a few possible outcomes after financial reviews. Now, the ones that I've seen recently, like all of these here that I'm literally not even getting into because it's going to be too long. But what typically happens, and what I've known to be true, but this website put it out perfectly, is there's usually a few different outcomes when you're financially reviewed. Now, one, full reinstatement, which we have seen on a bunch of those accounts as well. So have no fear. If you put in the documents and you are who you say you are, and you're making the income that you say you are, and it's higher than what you put on the application, then fine. You should be fine. There should be no issues whatsoever, and they would reinstate all of your accounts, You'll have all of your points and there'll be no issues whatsoever. You also have account closure with balance repayment. And so this will allow you to pay off what you owe, but you lose access to the card and they will cancel basically all of the cards that you have. And then you also have a closure with a forfeit of your membership reward points, which means they shut down basically everything. And so this is typically for fraud concerns and non-compliance. And so if you happen to be this person right here, like unverifiable income or something changed over the time, luck just struck you bad. There are a few things that can happen. Now, this is what I've always seen to be true with people in this situation, just as this commenter said right here. When Amex closes your account and it's for that specific reason, you typically will have 90 days to use the MR points. I've heard 30, I've heard 60, and I've heard 90. But you'll have limited options. So if you have another account, like if it's going to be one specific card, you could typically transfer it to the other card and then transfer those out to transfer partners. Okay, cool. And during this time, you may be able to transfer those points to the transfer partners. And so that's pretty cool. And so one thing that I would suggest, and this is not something typical, but I'm seeing it more and more, and actually people are going crazy. Like I showed you a little bit earlier, I mean, there are an insane amount of people who are getting hit with financial reviews right now. Like, it's actually kind of crazy, especially over the last few weeks. And so one thing I would suggest is, again, go over your big purchase this year. Does anything seem suspect? Does anything seem odd? Or is your income completely verified? Have they reached out to you already and you just declined to update your income? See if any of these things have already hit you. If not, just be a little bit wary that this could happen to anybody at any time for any reason, for what it looks like. I think majority of the time, you're safe. I think majority of the time, you're not doing anything questionable, right? You're not like applying for a million different Amex cards in a given year and then just hitting the welcome offer and not using it again, then canceling them over and over. I think if you're not doing the buying groups and manufactured spending, you're generally going to be fine. And so one thing I would say is if you are somebody who may be at risk for some reason, you lied on your applications, a few different things, I wouldn't freak out. Now, this is something that has happened for years. I remember this happened on YouTube a few years ago. Everyone freaked out. They're like, Amex is shutting down accounts. Let's transfer all of our points to partners now preemptively. I wouldn't suggest that. I will say, however, because these things largely are affecting a few minority people in the Reddit threads. These are people who are putting things out there. It's not the majority. Again, there's tens of millions of Amex people. There's a few people on Reddit mentioning it. There's a lot of them. It's more than usual, but again, it's still a small percentage of people, and typically those people are doing questionable things anyway. Not always, but sometimes. A lot of the times, honestly. And so one thing I would suggest is, if you are in a position where you already know that there is a redemption you're trying to make, right? You already know that you want to book, I don't know, this Emirates flight, or you want to book a bunch of these Hilton hotels, and you have Amex points that are already sitting waiting for it, but you've been procrastinating. I've done that a lot, and so that's why I'm mentioning I've sat on points that I knew I was going to transfer guaranteed to an airline anyway, just because I'm lazy, or I feel like maybe there'll be something better. If you already know there's going to be specific redemptions that you're actively planning currently, and you're somebody who may be at risk because you know what you did, maybe transfer the points over. Maybe do it preemptively just to be safe. If you do anything questionable whatsoever, maybe do it. However, if there's really nothing questionable and you're really not worried about it and there's actually no redemptions in mind, I would not jump to do it, because I did that many years ago. I remember when all these accounts were being shut down like a few years ago, I ended up transferring like 150,000 Amex points to Air France, to which 100,000 of those have expired useless because I wasn't able to use them, I would say, in the best way possible. There was some economy flights, and then I switched the flight and I said, screw it, I want business class. It's a whole long story, but moral of the story is, don't just transfer because you're nervous or you're scared, because these are likely, highly likely to not affect you. Like over 90% not going to hit you, but it's going to hit a lot of people. So I just want to be a word of caution, a little bit of wisdom of someone who's gone through this. And so just so you know, don't react hasty. Don't be rash. Don't send your points just crazy speculatively because you're nervous it's going to hit you. It's likely not going to. But if you already have something in mind, all right, go for it. Why the heck not? I might do that because I know I'm going to send my points somewhere, so I might. Why not? I'm a little bit questionable at times. And so that's just a general PSA to know what to do, what not to do, and how to go about this system. And again, if you have any issues directly and you really want to ask somebody, you could always ask me one-to-one in our Points of Miles experience. It's completely free for the first 7 days. Come join. If you have some issues, you have some worries, join that. You'll also have access to our 1100 plus Discord server, where you can ask other people who may be in the similar situations, and you could ask questions for the entire community and obviously the swath of everything in the classroom. And even our live calls that we do every other week that you can come ask directly one-to-one with me and all the other experts that I get on here every other week. So enjoy, be safe, and if you want to see how American Express kind of pulls all the strings, like if they're doing this now to you, assume that Chase and Capital One are going to be doing this. Check out this video right here. It's going to go through how American Express is the puppet master pulling the strings on every other card issuer right now, and why this is going to continue happening for the distant future. So I hope to see you there. Hope you get some value from it. Take care, travel, and have fun. Bye-bye.